6 red flags that someone's lying to you. You're walking down the street and a stranger approaches you to ask for help. He's got a long story of what he needs help with. How do you know that that person isn't a real and credible threat to your personal safety? You see, bad guys need to get close to you. And one of the best ways to do that is with confidence tricks. Basically to lie into your personal space. So knowing how to detect a lie can make a difference to your personal safety. So keep watching. Number 1, they provide too much information in their story. Liars will often over-elaborate or even overcompensate their stories. They build more into it, and ironically, it makes it far easier to spot. The more detailed, the more unlikely the story could be true. If it doesn't make sense, it probably isn't right. You can test a story by asking questions. Check the details of the story. Ask questions sometime after they've made the point. What I like to do is to ask the same question in a different way. And if you get a different response, it's pretty much accurate that that person's lying to you. If they're telling the truth, giving the details of the story should come easy. Another method often used in interrogation is to ask people to repeat their story backwards. Because this takes a lot of cognitive effort. It takes a lot of thinking for the person to actually recount the story that they've constructed. Now, if it's a lie, it will be very difficult for them to put it all back together in reverse order. And unless it's a well-rehearsed story, you will catch them out easily. Number 2, they avoid questions. Now, asking questions often leads to the second sign that people are lying to you. And that's where they try to avoid your question. A liar will tend to avoid questions where they have to make up more details. If you ask a what, when, and where question, they'll often avoid that and hesitate. If someone's telling the truth, there's no reason for them to avoid. Another tactic is where they throw another question up to avoid your initial question. They try to distract you from the initial point that you're making. Now, the reason why they want to do that is because it leads into the next red flag. Time. Number 3, liars try to buy time. What they have to be able to do is give themselves time to think, to elaborate a lie. Now, there are physical telltale signs. In conversations, they may use lots of ums, ahs, and pauses. But for me, the biggest red flag has to be where someone asks a question back or tries to avoid the point by deflecting it. But what they're essentially doing is buying time to elaborate their story. You see, when people are telling the truth, they generally get to the answers as quickly as possible. So try to avoid questions where there's only a yes/no answer. You have to ask more elaborate questions of people. Now, questions open up a whole new area in itself. Number 4, they overcompensate. Eye contact. Now, once you're in the process of detecting a lie, you need to look for the physical signs that they're lying to you. Essentially, that's their body language. So the 4th sign that you should pay attention to is their eye contact. You see, when someone's lying to you, they'll maintain their eye contact for longer. They'll have much more control because naturally most people look away when they're lying. They can't look you in the eye. That's where the saying comes from. Someone that's overcompensating, ironically, they'll hold their eye contact for longer. Number 5, they tend to be much more restrained with their body language. You see, people naturally move around and gestate with their hands when they're talking, when they're feeling comfortable and relaxed. But quite often when they're lying, they're more likely to be restrained with their hands. In other words, hiding their hands, keeping their arms still, not fidgeting so much. These are all signs of a really good liar. Now, the last sign, number 6. This red flag is only ever going to be identifiable in a prolonged conversation. If someone's hiding their mouth or turning their face away, it's a possibility that they may be lying to you. Now, when we're trying to understand people's behavior, we have to look at clusters of actions, not individual behaviors. So the fact that someone might cover their mouth or keep their hands still as a one-off behavior is not good enough to identify the person as lying to you, as being deceitful. But when you start to add all of the behaviors together as a cluster, then you start to see a bigger picture. It doesn't matter what someone says, but if their body doesn't back it up, there's a good chance that that person's lying to you. So what's the takeaway? It's always a good idea to ask questions. but it's the type of questions that you ask and the reactions to those questions that you're looking for. Remember, it's not what people say, but it's how they behave. But once you can identify irregular behavior, you'll be far better off in your self-defense capability. You see, people with bad intentions can use very sophisticated confidence tricks to get close to you. And once they can manipulate you into a position or a location or a situation in which they can control, it may be a risk to your personal safety. Understanding deceptive behavior has to be the first port of call of your self-defense. So take it seriously. Thanks for watching.